of the EFF, seated where you are, last week, saying boldly that the EFF, if it doesn't make the #1 spot, it is most certainly going to become the main opposition in South Africa because this is scientific, he says, and it is based on, in part, the amount of youth support that they have managed to galvanize over time in the country. Are you worried of losing the main opposition status?
No, not at all. And I think you have every election, the EFF make these outrageous claims. The last election was that they were going to win. They were going to win all the metros. I think it's part of the bravado that they pull out before the election. The real fight after the 29th of May is going to see who gets third place. Because if I look at some of the polling and some of the more up-to-date polls and certainly some of the more reliable polls, it's going to be a fiercely fought fight between the MK party and the EFF for third place. And I think that's where they should be worried about because they may end up being the fourth largest party in Parliament after this election, not the third.
If I didn't know, I would say you are gaslighting the EFF.
Not at all. It's polling. It's there. MK has surged ahead in provinces like KwaZulu-Natal, Gauteng. You look what happened at Orlando Stadium. I can tell you right now that that is where the fight is going to be after the 29th of May. The DA will be the official opposition if we're not able to form a coalition government at a national level. And the fight will be between the EFF and Jacob Zuma, ironically, for that third place.
Where do you place yourselves? What are your chances?
We'd obviously like to, as I've said from the beginning, be able to form the core of a new alternative government after the election. And that was why we formed the multi-party charter, was to bring 11 parties together to hopefully be able to pool our votes to win the 50% plus one at a national level. And that is still the first priority for us. We would love to form a new government with a new direction and with the policies and joint plans that the multi-party charter has been releasing over the last couple of months around the key areas where we believe South Africa needs to be doing things differently in order to get onto a new path of prosperity, opportunity, inclusive growth for more South Africans. And so that's where we see ourselves playing. And if we're not successful at a national level, I certainly think there are a number of provinces that are still absolutely in play for a multi-party charter government to take over. KwaZulu-Natal is ripe for the picking. The MK have eaten into the ANC support massively there. They've opened a pathway. Gauteng is looking increasingly promising. And of course, we believe we'll retain the Western Cape. And so that's three key provinces. That's over 60% of the economy, over 60% of the population. You control those three provinces, you're a big player in the South African political system.
All right. We'll get back to the multi-party
I'm sure we
charter somewhere along this conversation. Let's start with the highs and lows of the campaign trail. Mr. Steenhuisen.
Well, the highs have been able to just see how resilient South African people are in the face of massive adversity. And it has been incredible to see how people are making a plan just to be able to feed their families and to survive. The lows for me have been many, many more than were on 2019's campaign trail and many more that were on the 21 campaign trail. And that's just to see how hard life has got for far too many South Africans. Sitting in shacks in rural areas with mothers whose only concern, it's not climate change, it's not the GDP of the country, is what am I going to put on the table tonight for my children to eat? And to hear the heartbreaking stories of these families who are trying desperately to survive, be able to console the 7 out of 10 young people who cannot find a job, despite the fact they've been to university, they've done the studying, they cannot find work because our economy is not growing. Having to console grown men who break down in tears because they can no longer look their family in the eye because they haven't worked for 2 years and they feel like a failure, when in fact it's government that's pushed them into the unemployment queue. That's been the hard and low for me in this election. But again, it's a spur to get up and do something about it. And I've taken great strength from these people who are really struggling to make ends meet, but who still get up every day and try and make an honest living and do right by their families.
Let's look at the lows from a PR point of view, and I'm going to kick it off with the latest. Helen Zille, that's the DA's Federal Council chairperson, she's been reported to the IEC for going on social media, the X platform, doctoring. Well, we're not sure if she's done it, but she posted a re-engineered poster of the ANC with the words, "Let's do more crime together." The ANC's payoff line is, "Let's do more together." She's gone and done, "Let's do more crime." Why would Helen Zille go and do that? Is that something that is sensible, you think?
Well, I think that it's election season, Ollie, and the ANC's hands are not clean in this. They have been, through Cameron Dugmore in the Western Cape, distributing fake DA pamphlets, which are, trying to cast the DA in a very, very bad light. I think it's part of the backwards and forwards that takes place. They've manipulated our posters. Cameron Dugmore put out a pamphlet the other day, which was mocking me.
Have you gone and reported?
No, I'm not going to report it because, frankly, it's a little bit silly. This is election season. These things happen, and provided it's not an egregious misrepresentation of a poster or pamphlet, or disinformation. I don't think that we should burden the IEC with trying to navigate schoolyard fights. This is small ball stuff. There's a lot more serious issues around AI and fake news that's doing the rounds, including one where I'm alleged to have sold the Western Cape to Jeff Bezos, and as a fundraiser, and that's why there's all these NASA planes going around. And you would think any normal South African person would know that's nonsense straight away. But you'd be amazed how many times I've had to field calls asking how I could sell the Western Cape to Jeff Bezos. I've never even met Jeff Bezos, and wouldn't even know where to start from trying to sell the Western Cape. And I can tell you, I wouldn't be driving a 40-year-old car if I'd sold the Western Cape to Jeff Bezos as well.
But talking about, let me borrow from your words, egregious things that have been done during this election campaign. The flag burning advert. That is a matter that is before the Independent Communications Authority of South Africa, ICASA for short. Do you believe, John, that this was a public relations coup because it created talkability, or now that you've had a little bit more time to think about it, you perhaps are going to have a change of heart around the sacred nature of national symbols?
No, not at all. I think that what you want to look at when you're doing political communication is something that grabs attention and something that very simply explains your message. With over 5 million views, I don't think there's another political advert that's had so many views. And yes, there has been controversy, but nonetheless, people have been talking about the binary that is there. And frankly, the depiction in a CGI image of the flag burning is meant to represent what will happen to South Africa if a doomsday coalition does get in. Our economy will burn. Our parliament's already burnt. You will see unemployment increasing. You will see poverty and hunger increasing. And at the end of the advert, the flag fully restores, showing the binary there that we can prevent that from happening if people vote for the DA. The reality is our country is on fire already, Polly, and if you only need to travel around the country to see that. And it is a representation of the fact that our country is on fire. And that is why when you've actually gone beyond the Twitter faux rage, and you've actually looked at some of the polling that's been done around this by a number of newspapers, houses and the like, the flag has become out, advert has become out overwhelmingly supported by South Africans as a fair reflection of where the country is. So from a political perspective, I think the advert made the point it needed to do, that this is a serious election, there's a lot at stake, and that we can prevent what we depicted if people vote in the correct way in this election.
The issue is respect for national symbols.
Yes.
That's why the public broadcaster has decided that we're going to remove this advert, and that's why you are now before ICASA together. When is that going to conclude? And upon reflection, again, I ask you, do you think you're going to tread carefully around national symbols going forward?
Well, let me be clear. That's not the reason the national broadcaster refuses to air the advert. In their letter to us, they wrote that the president and the minister don't like it. Now, the president is the leader of another political party, and the minister is himself on the ANC's list to go to Parliament. So how can it be that the views and opinions of people from another political organisation have been factored into making this decision? And I'm very worried about that level of toadying to national government. National symbols are important, but national symbols are also at risk here. We've already lost one of our national symbols that went up in flames, and that was the People's Parliament, the very parliament from where Nelson Mandela delivered his first State of the Nation from. That has been the crucible of the dismantling of apartheid. That was a national symbol. It's gone up in flames. The ANC has destroyed every single one of the credibilities of the other national symbols that we have in South Africa. And I saw the other day the president was talking about treason. And I've challenged him, and I'll do it again tonight on your program because clearly he doesn't watch any of the other channels. Let's have a national debate about what is treason in South Africa. I think helping Jacob Zuma sell your country to the Guptas, that's treason. Breaking the country's exchange regulations by hiding dollars under your couch, that's treason. Pushing almost 13 million South Africans into the unemployment queue, that's treason. So I'm happy to have a toe-to-toe with the president at any time. I will also make the point, Goli, this was one of 5 adverts that the DA have done during the campaign. I haven't seen any of the other analysis of the incredibly positive messages that were contained in those that focus on the DA's track record. Why is this one advert being singled out?
Well, probably because...
And it's because people are talking about it. And that's what you want in political communications. People talking about it. The worst thing that can happen to you in politics is for people not to be talking about you.
Yeah. Well, John, as we usually do on this program, we get out there in the streets and ask for people's opinions. A government in waiting. Are you genuinely a credible alternative to the ANC? Let's have a listen to what people had to say.
No, because of when I look at the DA, it's based on mostly on one side, and then ANC it's actually national. And then out of all the opposition parties, they don't have all the strategies to turn ANC down. Because of most of the people, actually, they're afraid to go to the opposition party because of they don't trust, they don't have trust.
Possibly. They've done some work in Cape Town. We've seen some things. Possibly, yes.
Yes, you can say, okay, what the results they shown, like I mentioned in Western Cape, they clean up the city, and well, if they were in power or rule here in Joburg or say, then they'll clean up Joburg, which is also, the streets are filthy, so it will show a better result.
I don't think so. I said from the beginning, this is not their first term in opposition. So why now will they bring change? Why should they convince me that they will bring change? But for the past years,
iDA ihoyene yodwa kwezethu indlela kunzima noba kuzawujongwa nezindlu zethu kuthi uba kokhiwe akho inspector ingenayo ijonga uba indlu irayithi na indlela yenziwe na izindlu indlela ziphelile kodwa kuthiwa siphethwe iDA phofu irhubuluze ngo-2008 ungena kwayo uyarhubuluza ingena ngoba kuthiwa nguNontsapho babaleka abantu bakuthi babheka phaya asiyifuni iDA iphathe ngoba ayikwazi usenzela nto balungiselana nabodwa.
That last opinion, asifuni DA, we don't want the DA, and she states her reasons. Let's just get your reaction to some who say, yes, maybe you are a credible alternative, and there are others who are just clear that no.
Well, it's difficult to decipher what the one lady was saying there, saying that they're not their first term in opposition. Of course, you can't change things from the opposition benches, which is precisely why we're trying to get into power in this election and why we believe there's a credible path to victory. But the facts don't speak to what is being said there. Let's look at the Western Cape, for example, with 300,000 new jobs in the last year alone. Over 75% of the infrastructure budget in the city of Cape Town is being spent in areas like Khayelitsha, like Gugulethu, and like that area there. The new My City route, the busiest My City route, effective, well-priced public transport to get people to and from there is the N2 Khayelitsha route. This is a city and a provincial government that has the lowest unemployment rate, the highest access to basic services, and the most expanded basket of goods to indigent residents in the city and in the province. This is a government that's not perfect, and I don't think that there's any political party that can hand on heart say that they're perfect. And we've got a long way to go in the Western Cape, which is why we're seeking another term of office. There's lots more to do. But are we further along than any other place in the country, any other party? Absolutely, head and shoulders. And it's not John Steenhuisen and the DA propaganda machine telling you that. It's Ratings Africa. It's the Auditor General. It's the Universal Access to Household Basic Services reports. It's COGTA's own department, which shows the most successful municipalities in the country, Midvaal and Saldanha Bay at a local level, and the metro of the city of Cape Town. We've got the experience. We've got the people. We've got the plans and the policies to do what we've done in these places in more parts of South Africa, which is why our pitch in this election to people is that if you want to rescue your community, you want to rescue your city and province, make sure you vote in the right way.
Can I stay with the
Sure.
theme of trust for a moment?
Sure.
When you, as a political player in this election, decided that you wanted to invite the US government to come and observe elections in South Africa, what motivated that?
We didn't invite the US government, Xoli. What we wanted them to do was to facilitate a multi-organizational delegation like they did in 1994. The invitation wasn't to the US exclusively. It was to the G7 countries, it was to European countries, some of them have been through elections, as well as African countries in the AU that have also been through elections recently, like Zambia, like Kenya, so that we could understand and make sure that we have as many eyes on this election as possible, given the huge amount that's at stake here. Look, the ANC aren't going to walk out of office easily. And just as the ANC were wary that the National Party in 1994 was going to abuse their position as the party that had the machinery of state at its hands for electoral gain. And that's why they invited the US, Europe, Germany, all of these countries to come and do election observing here. So too are we concerned that the ANC is going to abuse the machinery of state.
Let me tell you.
Xoli, the only people who are worried about more eyes on the election are those people who want to steal the election. We should be opening the election up to as many people as we want to come and participate here.
The problem, John, at least for one head of state, former head of state, Thabo Mbeki, is that these are processes of the IEC. Why would the DA, as a political player, want to do this? But I want to quote directly from the former president, who says,
Sure.
the DA is making a statement about itself, that it doesn't trust our own people, it doesn't trust our own capacity to handle our own elections. The people they trust is effectively the white world. That's a statement about the DA itself. How do you respond?
No, that's not true at all. And Mr. Mbeki was part of the ANC's international office that went to these self-same countries and said, we need your help to come and watch what's going to go happen in this election. These are countries that are our trading partners. Our largest investors in our country come from the United States and Europe. I'd much rather have our friends and investors here than be inviting Iran and Russia the way the ANC have. ZANU-PF, you saw the other day, ZANU-PF is coming to help and assist the ANC in this election. I would much rather have our partners and friends and people who are truly committed to democracy coming to observe our elections than the ragtag bunch of despots, dictators, and tin pot leaders that the ANC wants to come and observe the election and probably assist them with some of the tricks they use in their own country to subvert democracy.
Mbeki's view is one point. It's a view of one South African. How do you think the majority of South Africans responded or thought of your invitation of the US in particular? I understand it wasn't just the US. But think of the US.
Our largest trading partner.
Our largest trading partner, yes.
AGOA.
But they've had their problems.
PEPFAR.
Their problems in their own electoral space, John.
Of course they do.
They've
but
had
every country
massive
does.
problems.
Every country has problems in its electoral space. But this is our largest trading partner. This is the country that gives us single-handedly access to their market, that allows us to create jobs in South Africa. This is a country that invests billions every single year here, that was the saving grace during the Mbeki era through the PEPFAR funding that they did so that we could save thousands upon thousands of lives when Mr. Mbeki was not wanting to give antiretrovirals to pregnant mothers. It was the PEPFAR program that rescued our people from Mr. Mbeki's tenure when he had the angel of death, Manto Chabalala Mzamang, in his pocket doing his bidding. That's who we want here. We want countries that respect democracy. Yes, the US has got problems. Yes, Europe's got problems. But these are democracies. These are not dictatorships like Iran. This isn't a president for life like Russia. This isn't a do what you can to destroy the opposition and run your people to the ground like Zimbabwe. These are functioning democracies and are at the top of the ranks in the world's ranking of freedom in terms of political freedom, media freedom, and the freedom of citizens to be able to conduct themselves. I think, and I come back to the point, that South Africans want a free and fair election. And the only people who don't want eyes on this election, as I've said, are the people who've got plans to steal the election. And we shouldn't be worrying about them. We should be worrying about how we can make sure we have a free, fair election where the result is immediately accepted as the fair, democratic outcome of a fair electoral process.
You're watching News at